Yo, what's good, guys? We are back at it again with everybody's favorite tier list, the pitcher tier list. And I will say, as someone who has not been super tapped into the game the last, couple weeks or so, I am immensely disappointed with the state of pitchers on the game right now. I don't know what SDS has been doing for the last month, where I haven't been playing the game a ton. But I mean, these pitching options are terrible. They're absolutely awful. But that being said, I am going to go through and I am still going to rank them headed into set five. Keep in mind that a lot of these set three guys won't be viable for too much longer. So if you're watching this, even a couple weeks from now, these guys probably don't make your rotation anymore. So let's lead off with Aaron Nola. Pretty underrated pitcher, has kind of a weird delivery. Decent control, decent pitch mix, nothing special. I think he can anchor a decent rotation towards the end of it. Ottavino always will be S tier against some players just because of where his delivery is, especially at parks like Laughing Mountain, where you can lose kind of the ball in the sun from pitchers that have these like weird windups like Ottavino does. So he has value there, but I always have trouble with relievers that have really low through nines, walks wise. Which is why I think somebody like Al Leiter is still S tier. Kind of a funky delivery. His pitches do a lot of stuff that traditionally pitches that he throws doesn't do. My bad, stumbled a little bit. His slider drops more than it breaks horizontally, so that can throw players off for a lot of innings. Has a decent cutter, and he can run his fastball up to like 97. Really do like Al Leiter. If you missed out on him out of the World Series awards, I think he is arguably the best World Series award pitcher we've had so far this year. Billy Wagner, still just a solid card against lefties out the bullpen. Should never pitch to a righty, really. I think he might have the worst slider in the game. As soon as it comes out of his hand, because of the arm slot that he throws out, you pretty much know it's a slider as soon as it comes out of his hand. So it kind of kills his best tunnel that he should have. The Snell card, been saying it, just so bad. Like, as far as a 12-0 event reward goes, he's by far probably the worst one. I can't believe I'm still ranking Camilo Duvall in these lists. I think this is like the third time he's made a list because SDS just doesn't come out with new pitchers. Again, same thing as previously mentioned on him. Very good on Legend. Every other difficulty, I'd probably avoid him. Kershaw, pretty good. If you like the Incognito Kershaw, this is a slight upgrade over that one. Is what it is. Kershaw's usually always good in the show. Cliff Lee, just a control freak pitcher with mediocre through nines. Don't think his pitch mix is too deadly. I think if you just want control freaks, I think there's better people out there. Like Kluber, he's probably the epitome of that. Probably has an argument for the best starting pitcher right now, and comes at five. Barring like a new Randy or something coming out, he probably will be the best starting pitcher. Dustin May, still good. Not much to say that hasn't already been mentioned with him. Will struggle with control sometimes, but throws an absolutely nasty mix. And if you can get him rolling, if you can get some confidence going, get his parse to shrink a little bit, he becomes very dominant. Gagne, he is the same as he's always going to be. Shut down against some people, BP against others. Throws that loopy curveball that either players hit out of the ballpark or they look goofy swinging at it and fall over. He's very volatile in that aspect. Felix, still a decent option, still has that funky arm angle with the outlier fastball that can throw a lot of people off, especially with the splitter that he throws. But this one's control is just terrible. It is bad. Even if you're throwing perfects, he's still going to struggle. So for that reason, I don't really love that Felix card. Valenzuela just never was good. Freddie Peralta, not good. Throws like 3 pitches. Not a fan of him. DeGrom, I can't put him S tier. He gets lit up every time I try to pitch him. I try to use him. He's one of my favorite players in real life. But just doesn't have it for whatever reason. We thought when they gave him a sinker, he would be shut down. When in reality, I think an outlier slider or better control on the sinker probably would have made him more dominant, but he just gets tattooed way too much for me to say he's S tier still. This Yohan Duran, him and Felix, if you're just getting back into the game or if you run a super budget squad, not two not bad options. I don't like what they did with Duran this year where they changed his arm slot. I think it was better in the past. Um, Joe Musgrove, kind of a BP pitcher. I think he can sneak into A tier. If you play on Legend, he probably is A tier. Below that, I think he's B tier or lower. I think he's just too easy to hit. He doesn't have good speed differentials, and nothing he really throws stands out. John, probably still the best pitcher in the game for the remainder of this set 4, where set 3 cards are still eligible. One of the only pitchers all year, I would argue, has a argument to be wild carded and use that wild card spot on a pitcher instead of like a hitter or a captain. I think him and Randy have the argument. So going into next season, he's not a terrible wild card option. If you are still enjoying him, Franco, a lot of the same stuff can be said about him as Billy Wagner. Pretty volatile. Probably wouldn't throw him against righties. Can blow up. I've never been a big John Franco fan, but I know a lot of people are. Love Johnny Cueto every year. Kind of a weird delivery with his little spin turn where he faces second base and throws a great pitch mix. Been saying it all year. If he got a card, he would be good. He finally got a card. The through nines aren't exactly what I would like, but he should still be a very, very good pitcher. Kendall Graveman, just a solid little bullpen piece. Not very hard to get. Pretty sure he's in the team affinity, if I remember right. Throws a good pitch mix. Has good through nines. He's just fine. So this is the one card I said blew me away when I saw they added it. Did not expect them to add a signature career tribute Kenley Jansen. Basically going to be, a redesign of that milestone card from earlier in the year. So if you did enjoy him, if you did have success with him, in theory, he's S tier. He's one of the best relievers in the game. The problem with him is everybody's kind of seen him all year because of that milestone one that came out earlier. So a lot of people are just going to light him up, but in theory, he is just as dominant as that one was. Kerry Wood would be very good if he had a little higher control. I think the control is an issue with him. This Luis Castillo All-Star Damon card. If you play on All-Star a lot, you can eat people up with that outlier sinker all day and all night. But other than that, probably would stay away from him. Mad Bum, I think the time has just kind of passed him by, right? At the start of the year, when hitters were kind of slacking before everybody had super stacked lineups, that Charisma Mad Bum was really good. I think his time's kind of passed. I don't think you're going to find too many people that still struggle against Mad Bum at this point in the year. Stroman is just probably worse Musgrove, to be honest. Has maybe slightly better pitches, but his speed differential's even worse than Musgrove. He's not going to get any strikeouts. He's going to struggle mightily on any difficulty that isn't Legend. He's going to give up a lot of foul balls, a lot of early home runs, a lot of just late home runs. He's just going to wander into trouble because of his speed differentials. This Mo, basically the 99 Mo, throws a little bit slower. Doesn't have quite as dominant through nines, but if you are somebody that enjoys Mo, if you do play good with Mo, that card's basically the same as the 99 for the most part. Mark Mulder, slightly upgraded Greg Maddux. If you like Greg Maddux, you'll like Mark Mulder. So that's my comparison for him. I'm not a big Maddux guy, so I can't say I love him too much. Mark Pryor, if you're somebody that really thrives off slurves, if you play at low ranks a lot, I think this Pryor card could be decent. Not sure how to see. Here it is. Throws a kind of fast four seam, throws a slurve and a curveball. That's a no-no for me. I would rather have one or the other, not both. Throws a changeup, throws a slider. He's okay. He's decent, not great. But for his price, he's decent enough. Diego, very similar to DeGrom. A very volatile pitcher that is either shut down or people just sit on the four seam and don't let you throw it at all. He's all right. Matt Cain, is he worth grinding the Extreme program if you haven't already? Absolutely not, but he is a solid option. Max Fried, very similar to Cliff Lee. I believe Cliff Lee's a righty, if I'm remembering right. No, he's a lefty. So, yeah, they're pretty much the same card. So, pick and choose. I think Cliff Lee's like affinity or a ranked reward. something like that. And Freed was an XP path, so Freed will probably be cheaper. Um, this Lorenzen card, I think, is still very slept on. Has good through nines, has a decent enough pitch mix. I don't think a lot of people are pitching him. I think he's one of the more slept on cards all year. Mussina, maybe if you are good with this pitch mix, you can make an argument for A tier. The problem is no changeup, right? So you have these two pitches that are thrown at a similar speed that break the same way. Then you've got your sinker that's not super fast, and your four seam that's not super fast, and the curveball that's going to be BP. He is going to struggle a lot against good players. Maybe you can get away with him. I've never really been a huge fan of Mussina cards. Nestor is actually pretty solid. He has a lot of the stuff that Leiter has, where like his slider drops more vertically than it does horizontally. That can throw people off for quite some time. I think he's decent. I'm not going to sit here and gas him up, but I think he's an okay option if you want to anchor your rotation with him. I don't think he's an ace by any means. Nolan, still A tier, right? If you enjoyed the Nolan earlier in the year from World Series awards, this one's very similar. If you play a lot of people that don't adapt to outlier fastball as well, he is still good in that regard. If you want to pitch off his sinker like most good players do, he is still decent in that regard. I've just never personally been a huge fan of Owen Ryan. Corbin, pretty bad. Not gonna front, he's pretty bad. I think he's much better as that like 93 or 94 overall bullpen arm. I think that other card has more value, right? You pull out your flame-throwing starting pitcher, you throw him in for an inning or two, let him work as like a long reliever, and then you bring in like a flamethrower like Gagne or Billy Wagner, somebody like that. I think that has a lot more value than him as a starting pitcher that tops out at 92 miles an hour. Skeens, still a decent option, obviously expiring soon. I put him right here with these three towards the top of A tier. I think he's still a good option. I think he's still decent. But, you know, his time is limited because he's a set 3 card. This Rizal card does not look good to me whatsoever. Decent through nines, but the pitch mix just isn't there. Rob Nins, like a super slept on card all year. Nobody really uses 99 Charisma when it came out other than Rebels started using it later in that season. I think he's the only person I've seen use him all year. He has kind of a funky delivery. He has a good pitch mix, and he throws pretty hard. So I actually do kind of like Rob Nin. I think he's a little bit underrated. Raleigh Fingers, I've always liked in the show. I find him to just be a better Eckersley, right? I will never understand why people use Eckersley, especially when it's a card of his that only throws like 3 pitches. I'd rather have Raleigh Fingers. He's more of a control freak. He typically has better speed differentials. You can actually throw his sinker like up and in because he throws it like 94, 95. And then he's got that fork ball to work off of that he throws at like the low 80s. So you can get a lot of swing and misses there with the speed differentials. Roy Halladay, still good if you play on Legend a lot. Hall of Fame and below, he probably, Hall of Fame, he probably drops to A. All-Star, he probably drops to B. So that's how he goes. That's how most control pitchers are. They get better on the higher difficulties. Rube Foster, just a junk pitcher, just a better version of Fernando Valenzuela. I think he's decent if you're still using him. I would not go out of your way to get him. Ryan Helsley, mid. Just pretty much a default pitch mix. The only thing saving him is the outlier fastball. If you play a lot of people that struggle against outlier fastballs, I think he's still decent. Ryan Presley, pretty slept on card. I think he's pretty decent. Obviously does not have an outstanding pitch mix by any means, but has good through nines, and you can see, again, a very default-ish pitch mix. The slurve kind of saves him a little bit, but I think he's decent, especially for, what he takes to get. Satchel Paige, just super mid. One of the more disappointing pitchers I've seen all year. I thought he was going to be really good. He's kind of got that Bob Gibson problem where you're like, oh, this guy's going to be nasty on the higher difficulty. But because his walks through 9 and control are so mid, he ends up with super big pars on Legend, which is something you can't really afford on those super high difficulties. Shohei's still a decent option, basically Paul Skeens, but swap like Paul Skeens' slider or whatever for a sinker if you'd rather have that. I think I'd rather use Skeens, but Otani can be good if you get him rolling, if you get his pars to shrink because his confidence gets up. He can be good in that regard. Tom Glavine in years past I've liked. I just don't really like him this year. It doesn't really feel like you can throw hooks too much. Usually they get tanked, so it's hard to work with him, especially if he's not throwing 98, 99, like that Mets flashback card in the collections from a couple years ago. That was probably peak Tom Glavine for me. I don't think he's had a card that's reached anywhere close to those heights since. Rosenthal, very similar to Halsey, basically like the same card. I think Rosenthal might have more pitches, but it's like a two seam or something, right? Yeah, so basically the same card as Halsey, and they play for the same team. Funny enough, Troy Percival, very similar to Rob Nin, super just slept on card. Always has kind of a weird ish delivery, something you're not totally used to, but you can see a very like default pitch mix. Really, what's saving him is the fast fastball and the weird delivery. Walter, never gonna be a fan of Walter. Honestly, I'm tempted to put him C tier. Definitely not worth the Team Infinity grind. Like I've said with all of his cards all year, a good player's gonna tank him because he only really has vertical break with his pitches. If you gave him like a cutter or a slider, then he would have some potential. But you can see the only horizontal break he has is a sinker, and that's going to be inside, and a good player is just going to tank him. He's not particularly hard to hit. Zach Gallen, just another like mediocre pitcher. Has a decent pitch mix. The through nines just aren't really there, and he doesn't throw super hard. Zach Britton, probably the best lefty specialist in the game right now, and he's not super great as that. But due to the lack of any other lefty specialist I would feel remotely confident in, I think he's just S tier by default. Zach Greinke would have some potential for S tier. I don't know if he still tips his pitches. I haven't seen him or used him yet. If he had his outlier fastball, which sometimes they like to give Greinke, I think he'd have an argument. But without it, I think he's just bottom A tier. He's mid. He doesn't really top out over like 96, 97 if you're super lucky. And he just kind of has a mid pitch mix. Four seam slider, circle change, sinker, curveball. The sinker saves him a little bit, but again, if he tips his pitches and doesn't have outlier, I just don't see him ranking too high. And then Wheeler, another card I think is just super slept on. Pitched him in ranked game. He pitched fine for me. Not a lot of people have seen him. He actually has a pretty solid little pitch mix. And so I don't really mind Wheeler. I think for what he costs, he is very good. And that is my pitcher tier list heading into set 5 as we wrap up set 3. Really like a lot of these guys. John is probably still the de facto number 1 until the next season flips over and he is a wild card option. Then it'll be Kluber. I think Kluber will be the best in the game for sure. And I'm looking forward to SDS dropping some better starters, man. The fact that I made this whole tier list, right? I took almost a month off the game. Haven't been super active on the game because of things like 2K and FIFA coming out. The fact that this card is the only card that really impressed me coming back is crazy. I knew about Johnny Cueto. I am so active on Twitter, and I still see all the, posts, all the leaks and whatnot. The fact that Kinley's the only card that surprised me while making this list is insane. I don't know what SDS is doing. Madden comes out, 2K comes out, FIFA comes out, and they just lay down and just decide to die. Like, I don't get what they're doing right now. The content is at an all-time low for the game. But here is the tier list. Honestly, not too much has changed. Most of the new cards I don't really like, other than Cueto, Jansen, and I guess you could call Britton new. I think I ranked him in the last tier list. I think I did it when BR reset. So, yeah, it's been going on close to a month, and there's been 3 cards that have impressed me. So, unfortunate, but we're gonna keep grinding. We're going to keep thugging it out. And if you guys did enjoy the content, feel free to like and sub if you have watched multiple of the channel's video and you do enjoy the content. Till next time, when we do infielders. Peace.